Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of X Marathon, the series where we cover most things X-Men related, and we are covering, at least at the time of recording, the most recent big thing to come out of the X-Men franchise, at least this year. And I mean, we haven't gotten Deadpool and Wolverine yet, but this is the thing that was like, okay, X-Men are back with X-Men 97, the continuation of the 90s X-Men cartoon. And with me today we have...
Oh, it's me, Emily. Hi. You may know me from talking about X-Men on this channel a lot. I'm also on some of the anime episodes, and I talked about a Nick Cage movie that I liked with Max one time.
Yep. Really fun review, actually.
It's one of my favorites we've done.
Yeah, no, we're going to be talking about X-Men 97. I'm just going to say, I really enjoyed this show. I know you weren't able to finish it, but...
So I, initially, when this came out, I love X-Men stuff, as should be evident by how many of these episodes I appeared on.
Mm-hmm.
I was very distrustful of the show when it was announced, because they announced it as, we're doing a thing that centers Magneto, and we have not at any point in the past 100 years ceased to be Disney. And I was like, I'm gonna wait and see how people feel. And then it came out and people really liked it, and I still haven't watched
it. Well, okay. I was able to watch it, as I said, and I mean, we wouldn't be doing a review if none of us watched it. But
yeah,
with X-Men 97, what I was genuinely shocked about, like, any fear you had about them not being able to, like, actually go in depth about what X-Men are actually about, throw that completely out the window. This show goes for it. It talks about metaphors for racism, gay pride movement, people's choices, terrorism, hate crimes. There's actual blood in this show. Great dialogue, like very Shakespearean style dialogue in some moments. Like there's a scene where, in like one of the earlier episodes, where Storm gets hit by like a gun that like takes away her powers, and this happens at the UN where Magneto's on trial for his past crimes. And what happens is he basically, instead of like killing everybody in the room, he just lifts everybody up into the sky and basically says like, I should smite you down for what you just did to a beautiful person, but because I'm trying to lead a better path and be like my friend who is now gone, Charles Xavier, I'm going to spare you guys, but do not make me regret my decision. And it's a beautiful scene and really epic and really cool. I don't like the costume, but that's besides the point. It's just a really well done scene, and like Magneto in general throughout this series is like really well done. They show his tattoos.
Interesting. I mean, I'm glad. I was worried that Disney was going to shy away from doing that. They still have the opportunity to in actual like main MCU timeline, but
they don't like show like what the first X-Men did with like him in the camps. There's like hints to it, and like there's moments where like you go back in past and you see tanks go by and he looks kind of like afraid at them.
Right.
And like there's a lot of really good stuff that they do with Magneto, and especially what happens at Genosha. Up until that point, he's been trying to lead this quote unquote better path. I mean, depending on where your stance is with like how Charles does things and how Magneto does things, he's trying to lead a path that is less violent.
Sure.
And try to coexist with humans now that he basically Charles has given the X-Men to Magneto in his will.
Right.
So he's trying to be the leader of the X-Men in that way. And then like Genosha finally gets recognized as a country in the UN. And that's like a huge step forward. And then one of the most horrific episodes halfway through the season is episode 5, where I don't know what they call it, but this giant master mold sentinel basically comes in and just kills everybody. It's not a fun episode at all. It is horrific. Like there's barely any music at some points, and if the music is there, it's kind of like this really haunting, like something, the ball is about to drop and I don't know what's gonna happen. And then they don't shy away from people just getting completely like obliterated, and it's a really sad scene because like there's a moment where like Magneto is using his like magnetism to like shield from a blast, and he's holding Leech. And I know, and he's trying to hold Leech from like getting disintegrated, and right before like he gets overwhelmed. He looks at the kids and says something in German like, "I am sorry," and just he witnesses this kid get obliterated right in front of him.
So wait, when you say everyone dies, what do you mean by that?
Okay, what I mean by that is I shouldn't say everyone dies. That's me being a little bit overdramatic. I guess what I mean is like when we see Genosha in this film, it's like a mutant like utopia. There's a lot of people there. There's music. There's dancing. We get a lot of X-Men characters that have now become really popular that past the 90s cartoons, so they're kind of retroactively putting them in there. But when the Master Mold comes down and basically destroys them, it's kind of like watching like a, for lack of a better reference point, like a 9/11 event.
Right.
Where
I can see that.
Where there's a lot of death and people trying to save other people. Like Rogue and Gambit are there and they're trying to save people. And then, I mean, if you want to get to the big spoiler, Gambit dies.
Fuck.
Like Rogue goes to try and destroy it, but he basically like tries to save her by like throwing like his motorcycle at her. It explodes, knocking her out. He then goes after the thing and he gets like, I don't know what it is, but it's like this thing that the Master Mold uses to like pick off specific threats, like a big cable, and he gets stabbed in the side.
Jesus.
And he grabs onto it, and basically, you know, his power is anything he wants to have explode, he explodes, and he basically holds onto it and basically says like, "The name's Gambit. Remember it," and blows the thing up and dies.
Damn.
It is incredibly dark. This show is dark. And like,
interesting. That's a fascinating tone for Disney's first X-Men outing.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, I really think you should give like Disney a shot, because like, or at least Marvel a shot, because Kevin Feige is an executive producer on this show. This was one of his ideas. He was like, "Look, I think if we're gonna get the X-Men back, we have to like bring it back to what it was and like what people remember, like the good stuff at least. Like, we're gonna get Deadpool and Wolverine with like the movie side of things, but for like what people remember of like actual like X-Men and the comics side of things, the X-Men cartoons did a really good job of adapting those, so they're bringing that back and giving like the overall tone of what they want to do with X-Men."
I will hesitantly say that this is a good thing, but I will also note that Marvel has been much more willing to experiment and do interesting things in their TV shows than they have their movies. And I would hope that they are willing to bring this level of ingenuity and actual risk-taking into a feature-length X-Men film. I am just not 100% sure on if they're going to do that, but I would like them to.
I think they are, because if this is what they're willing to do on a... Keep in mind, this is a Disney show. Disney's known for their animation. Like, when you think Disney, that is a thing they're known for, so... This is a Disney animated thing, and it, like, I don't know if I would ever show any kid this show, or at least this version of the show, because there's a lot of themes that they go into, and like one of the things they do that I think is really clever is how they handle the character Sunspot.
Oh shit, Sunspot shows up. That's cool.
Sunspot's in this show. He has like this real little relationship with Jubilee. But one of the things I found really interesting was how they handle him, like, quote unquote, coming out to his mom. Like, at first, they do a really interesting thing of, like, oh, she's really open to it. And, like, oh, okay, like, we knew. We did not believe for a second that our yacht got raided by Somali pirates and was burnt down. Like, we knew what happened. It was you.
Right.
But the thing I find really interesting is immediately her reaction afterwards. Like, yeah, we accept you, but, like, don't go around. Like, you gotta distance yourself from the X-Men. Like, we can't, like, after the Genosha thing, we can't, like, just have one of our kids like going around being a mutant.
Right.
And another thing I found really interesting was how they handle, like, oh, we're gonna throw a gala dinner for the people of Genosha and a fundraiser for a big party event where all the proceeds will go to survivors of Genosha. And I was like, wow, you are really calling out a lot of different things here.
Right.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's interesting. It's like, and again, the show takes place in the 90s, where it's like there's nothing here that feels like new. Like, the most new thing is how they treat the character Morph, where I'm like, okay, if there was a 90s TV show, I don't think they would be talking about pronouns, but for like a 2020 show, it makes sense why, like, oh, okay, we're gonna have a character that has they them pronouns.
Sure.
Whereas, like, that's
which I guess makes sense for like a shapeshifter.
Exactly. Like, I mean, like, that makes sense. I thought he was a pretty cool character, and like that's the one thing that, like, was really interesting. Like, I mean, that's where we get like all of our interesting like Easter egg cameos. Is like, what character is he going to shapeshift into next? Like, that's the one where it's like
so they shapeshift into other X-Men characters that they're bit
and other superheroes.
Okay, so it's like, this character is gonna be they them Captain America now. Woo.
Yes,
Like that kind of stuff.
it's more like you get like the Hulk and Mr. Fantastic. Those are like the most like un X-Men characters you get.
That's cool.
What I also like about the show is like the one thing you weren't able to get with like all the previous X-Men movies is like, what do other superheroes that are not mutants think about this? So
Right.
like one of the characters they use is Captain America. Captain America has a pretty small role but kind of important role in showing like how does like the non-mutant side of things think about this. And,
Sure.
like, but again, like personally, I'm not a big fan of the Captain America version where they just make him a Boy Scout and like, oh, government like lapdog. Like I like Captain America's like grown more than just that. But I
Yeah,
also
definitely.
understand like his point of view of like, look, we can't just go out. I can't, like me personally, I can't just go to like some Mexican compound and just start beating up people. Like that does not look good for me.
Right.
And oh man, Rogue does one of the pettiest things to Captain America I have ever seen.
Really?
Yeah, Rogue is a great character in the show. You would love it. She flies up, grabs his shield, and just chucks that motherfucker into the mountains.
It's awesome.
It is like the pettiest thing I've ever seen done to a Captain America thing, and like all he could do is just look and just like, wow, fuck.
Yeah, no, it comes back, dude, right? Yeah. It's going to come back. Yeah. It'll happen.
Yeah, it was just like, well, if your hands are tied, you won't be needing this. And like you get other cameos, like you get like there's like a big event thing that happens at the end of this series where after Genosha, Magneto was captured by the main villain of this season, Bastion. I don't know if you know this character.
Maybe
He's
Not sure.
he's a technopath.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
I didn't know about this character going into the show, so it was kind of cool. I like the voice actor because he's an actor that I genuinely like in things. Theo
Yeah, who is
Vaughn.
it?
Theo Vaughn. Oh no, not Theo Vaughn.
Oh, sure.
Oh god, no, Theo James, not Theo
I
Vaughn.
would hope
That would be a
Theo Vaughn.
very different interpretation of the character.
Yeah, Theo James, Divergent guy.
Yes, I like that guy, and he was also in the recent TV show adaptation of The Gentleman, which is a really good show, by the way, which I highly recommend. And he does a really good job as Bastion, as like this kind of arrogant prick, but he's also like the Magneto of humanity. Everything that Magneto would do to like have mutants on top, he's doing for having humans on top, where he's gonna like evolve humans to a point using technology. And
Interesting.
he's destined to basically rule over Earth and try to like evolve humanity to a point where we live in a utopia where like humans have evolved to like be prime sentinels, where it's like a mixture of the techno-organic virus. Oh god, there's a lot of weird X-Men stuff that they bring into this. What they do with him is like, the reason why I say he's like the Magneto for humanity is that like he just is not like, he sees mutants as like a threat and like we need to do something about this. Like he compares mutants to like global warming, where it's just like we gotta focus on it now, otherwise it's gonna grow out of control. It's a really interesting take
Sure.
on a villain, and again, it's like the opposite of Magneto, but Bastion has Magneto captive, and when Magneto eventually escapes, Magneto is in his underwear and he still does this. He goes to the North Pole and basically makes a worldwide EMP. And basically
That's
says,
awesome.
fuck everybody, I'm done. We're on top. We're the superior race. Like, I am
That-
done trying to play Charles's, like, good guy routine. Fuck that.
Yeah, dude, if I was kept prisoner for a while by some, like, I don't know, fucking humanity supremacist type asshole, I could see why he would do that. That makes sense.
This is also after the Genosha incident, so he is, like, he doesn't say,
Yeah.
like, there's a good part of this series where he doesn't say anything, and then when he escapes, he's just like, alright, I tried to play your peacekeeper, Charles, but we're done. No. Like, there's another moment where, like, spoiler, Charles comes back, and,
Sure.
he like tries to reason with Magneto after this, and Magneto just tells him, Charles, I'm gonna tell you the two words that I've wanted to say to you for a long time. Shut up. I'm like, holy shit.
Wonderful.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like,
That's the Magneto I wanted.
yeah, that's the thing where I'm like, dude, like, everything in this show is like what you would want. Wolverine doesn't have that big of a role, but like, there is a moment in the series towards the end where it's like, okay, that was pretty cool, Wolverine. every X-Men
I
that you
also don't mind Wolverine not having as huge of a role.
Oh,
Personally.
me neither. I think like we had enough movies of him being the main character. It's kind of interesting to see him play this side character role where he still has like us saying things, but he's not
Sure, but
like
he's not like the guy.
yeah, like he has a really cool scene where he fights with Nightcrawler.
That's cool.
The Prime Sentinels tell him like surrender and we'll spare the mansion. He's like, I'm gonna give you 6 reasons why I'm not gonna do that, and then Nightcrawler appears and he just goes, "No, Fräulein, 9," and he has 2 swords in his hand and then 1 on his tail.
That's fucking awesome.
It is like it is awesome. It is probably like action wise and animation wise, which by the way, great animation. Like
excellent.
they managed to still keep within the style of the original 90s animation without, you know, having that weird like film grain that it had back then. It's modern enough to stand on its own. And I think another thing that I just really like about the show that I haven't really gone into yet is they make Cyclops like a very interesting character. Like
I'm not huge on Cyclops, but I know people are, so I am happy that he is getting his flowers.
they go into the whole like Jean Grey, Madeline Pryor thing. I don't know if you know about this.
Not super well.
So Madeline Pryor is a clone of Jean Grey.
Okay.
So in the beginning of the show, what we believe to be Jean Grey is pregnant with Nathan Summers, aka Cable, and once the baby is delivered, the end of the episode ends with Jean Grey walking in, and they're like, "What the fuck?" And we find out that at some point in time, Jean was captured and replaced by this clone. And once they break out of that whole situation, and unfortunately, little baby Nathan gets infected with a techno-organic virus and has to go into the future, the Jean Grey that gave birth to Nathan now identifies as Madeline Pryor.
Okay.
And so now we have 2 Jean Greys walking around. But the thing that I find really interesting is that like Scott still loves Jean Grey, but he also still loves Madeline Pryor because he also spent a lot of time with that version, and that is ultimately the mother of his child. So there's this.
That's like complicated, yeah.
It's very complicated, but I think they do a really good, mature way of like not making anyone out to be like the bad person in this situation. It's like it's a very weird and complicated situation that they have to navigate, and like at a point like when you get the Summers family fighting together, it feels like cathartic because it's just like, okay, they're now like seeing each other as family. And like one of the things that I find really interesting is how like Scott was abandoned by his father, and that's why he sees like Charles as like this big father figure, and like he has abandonment issues. Like he does not want to leave anybody behind. So the very thought of having to give up his child and leave him to the future like really fucks with him.
Right.
And they do a really good job of handling it. Like there's a moment where like he gets interviewed after this happens, and they're asking a bunch of questions about human and mutant relationships and like how they can coexist, and he's just like, man, you people just completely like don't appreciate what we do. Like it is just like him just going off on this interviewer is just very like interesting because like this is the leader of the X-Men. Especially now like that Magneto is in charge and the roles have basically flipped. Like that's
Right.
very interesting, and I love the way they handled it. And yeah, like the Scott Summers stuff is the ultimate heart of this season.
I mean, good. That's normally what I feel like Cyclops should be. So I'm glad that that's the direction they choose to go.
Mm-hmm. So
Cyclops
yeah,
has always, and especially in the '90s cartoon, sort of been the veritable Boy Scout, but not Boy Scout in the sort of obnoxious Captain America, I do what the government tells me way, but in the sense of it feels like he's kind of meant to be a moral sort of center for a lot of these other characters.
mm-hmm.
Which I think is good, and I do think the X-Men need that because they have a lot of characters who aren't super morally black and white.
Wolverine.
And so, yeah, I was going to say Wolverine's just one example, but I mean, there are plenty of others. What I think is interesting about Scott is that all of these stories need him for that reason, because when they have a character who is like, you know, on the one hand, a goody two-shoes, but is also the character who's going to be willing to be like, okay, I'm going to be the person who steps up and says we should do the right thing, because a lot of people, they might choose to do the right thing, but they're not going to choose to do it without prompting, because that's just the nature of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's always been that Scott is sort of that emotional heart and emotional guiding sort of beacon for the X-Men. And so I'm glad to hear that that sort of endures in this new interpretation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like, I remember like one of the fun things about watching this show. I was like you, it was like I watched the original cartoon. I never really like binged it, so I always just saw it as like the freak of the week kind of show. Never really thinking that it had an actual storyline through and through. Where so when I heard that they were going to continue this, I was like, okay, I guess it's just a way to kind of like get people back on board. So seeing like Twitter every time a episode dropped, being like, holy shit, this is like actually really good. I was like, oh wow, they actually do care. And like the Genosha episode left people speechless and crying. Another character like that is like a big part of the show is Rogue. Like she has a very big role to play in this series, I guess you can say. Like
Okay.
she plays the ironically wild card character. I know with her relationship to Gambit, that's a forced pun, but what I mean by that is like there's a lot of moments where she, at least in the later half after the Genosha incident, she is just like on a war path against to find the people that were responsible. Again,
Well, and sure, I mean, why shouldn't she be?
again, and there's a moment where like she gets a hold of Bolivar Trask, and he's like, "Look, I made the Sentinels, but I had no part in this." And she's like, "Okay." And he's about to like jump off a building. Oh yeah, this show goes, talks about suicide too. And she grabs him, and he's like, "Please, please, save me." And he's just like, "For the amount of lives that you've taken from us, no." She drops him.
Oh, she like kills him.
She goes to kill him. Ultimately, they kind of cop out, and one thing I don't like in that he comes back as like one of the Prime Sentinels, which are. But for a moment, they're like, she had all the intention to kill him.
Yeah.
Like,
and all of the fucking reason in the world to do so.
And one of the moments that I really like is all the different X-Men's reaction to it, because like Scott's like, "Whoa," Wolverine's like, "Good."
Yeah.
It's one thing I like about him in the show. He's like, "Look, I don't give a shit. Like, if people need to die, they need to die."
Yeah, I mean that's Logan for you. Like that's his character. I'm not surprised.
I mean, I like Wolverine, so that's one thing I was like, "Oh, okay, like that's true with character at least." But no, yeah, like the show goes hard, man, and like it has some funny moments too. There's one episode that has to deal with Mojo. That is complete filler.
Yeah, but I would argue it wouldn't be a true adaptation of the 90s cartoon if it didn't occasionally just do some nonsense that was completely unrelated to the ongoing plot.
I know, but I guess it was just one thing that was like, I guess for me, in the situation I watched it, where it was like, all right, I gotta watch this for the show. So, like, I want to be able to get all the stories. So, just having this weird diverging thing where, like, Mojo kidnaps Jubilee and Sunspot and puts them in a arcade game, like those side-scroller beat-em-ups, like the X-Men games that used to be.
Okay, I can't lie to you. I would probably really love this episode. That sounds really fun.
It's very fun because it's kind of like they don't commit to having, like, the main characters be pixelated, but the backgrounds are pixelated and done very much like an original X-Men beat-em-up.
That's cool. That's really
and like Mojo
cool.
calls it the Motendo and stuff like that. And like I don't know if I just never knew that much about Mojo. I knew that Mojo existed. I just didn't know this was what he was like. So I was like, oh shit.
No, that's fair. I appreciate that it still has the sort of goofy fun from the original. I mean, that is good. That makes it a good adaptation to me.
All in all, though, like very fun show. They leave it up for season 2, and from what they're leading into, it's interesting. But I'm kind of...
That is good. I do know they removed the lead writer.
I was gonna get into that.
Yeah, I don't think they've still clarified why.
They haven't. And it's really interesting though, because like there's no like real hate or animosity between the leave as well.
Yeah.
Because the main writer of the show was on Twitter like week to week answering questions.
Yeah, I knew that. He seemed chill about it. I still don't know what prompted it.
I mean, if we're gonna go based off of the wildly like speculated and might be true, is that he had an OnlyFans.
Yeah, that's not great for Disney branding. I could see why they might be pissy about that.
But I feel like after the success of their show, they could be like, we need him back.
Yeah. To be fair, they also did the same thing to James Gunn when he made jokes on Twitter 10 years ago that they didn't like. And then they wound up rehiring him because they realized that nobody else would have made Guardians 3 a good movie.
Exactly.
I mean, I hope they bring him back. I hope that season 2 is good. I mean, you have, sort of sufficiently sold me on checking out season 1. I do have other stuff I'm going to watch first, but
oh, definitely.
It's on my list.
I wouldn't like rush to see it because especially like the way they end it is kind of like, all right, I'm the story of the season ends, but it's like I kind of want to know what happens. It is a legit cliffhanger
Sure.
in that regard, but
Well, yeah, but also true to the original show, which loved its fucking cliffhangers. So,
Mhm.
I mean, all in all, it seems like they have done everything that the original '90s cartoon did, just like more of it.
And made it more adult too, because they're also like, look, we don't know if this show will be like geared towards kids because like we haven't like X-Men haven't been around in like the pulp culture zeitgeist in a while. Like the most people know about the X-Men in general are just Deadpool. So we need to figure out a way to like bring it back in some way. So we're going to try to get the people that used to watch the show and basically get them on board.
That is fair. I will also say, though, that there is no lack of adult content in that original X-Men show. It is fucked up at times.
Okay, I got to watch it then. I mean,
yeah, it's not quite on this level, but it was definitely pushing boundaries of what you could do in a Saturday morning cartoon.
Mm-hmm. That's all I got to say about this show, and it's kind of... I know right now what they're going to do with the X-Men. They have hired a writer to make a new X-Men film.
Yes.
And
I hope it is a writer who will make a good film as opposed to a bad one.
Yes. From what I know is that it's the same writer of The Hunger Games, The Songbird of...
Ballad of Songbird and Snakes is the name of that movie.
Thank you. We reviewed it. I mean, I didn't review it. Joelle did. But yeah, they hired the writer of that film. Not the writer of the books, but the writer of the movie. And from what I've heard, and this is only leaks and rumors from like inside sources or Reddit for all we know, is that the lineup of X-Men are going to be from this show.
So they're going to use the same, like, are they going to do the animated style?
No, what I mean is they're going to
the same characters.
So the X-Men lineup that you know from this show is going to be in the movies.
Cool. I'm excited to see the third different version of Nightcrawler we'll be getting in live action then.
And the second version of Wolverine.
Yeah, that'll be tough.
That's going to be a tough cast. From what this series has promised me, I'm really excited to see what the MCU is going to do with mutants. I mean, we got to get through the multiverse bullshit now, but I think once we're out of the multiverse stuff, I think they're going to really come back hard with the mutants.
That'd be cool. I'm still skeptical. I'll believe it when I see it, but it'd be nice if they do well.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, in the meantime, yeah, it's kind of like it's a weird ending for this series. At least this portion of the series where it was really fun getting to like talk X-Men with you and Joelle. And I mean, I know Joelle's going to be talking about New Mutants with me, and we'll cover basically all the other X-Men movies that were going to happen. As a look into the future, I think this is a really interesting and a bright star leading us.
Like this video and subscribe to our channel and ring the bell if you want to hear more reviews of things that are both X-Men and not X-Men. Mm-hmm. In the next video that I'm on, I will say something very entertaining, and you'll only hear me say it if you subscribe and ring the bell.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube will not tell you that I have appeared to say something funny, and I mean you wanna know.
Oh, definitely.
So subscribe. Subscribe to our Patreon. You can hear me say even more funny things that Max won't let me say on the main channel because he edits them out. We have uncut episodes of our shows as well as sort of other exclusive content like $1 Million Media After Dark, and give us money and we'll put it to good use to make better videos.
Yes.
And we'll finally buy Max a second pillow of editing 24/7.
Thank you. I definitely need it.
Yeah. Subscribe, like, share with your friends. If you like this video and you have a friend who you think would also like this video, send it to them. If you have an enemy who would hate this video, send it to them too.
That's all we gotta say. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and have a good day. Bye.